Hey everybody, it's Bailey Justin 12 here, Bailey Justin 15, Bailey Justin 27,522, it doesn't matter. Here today we're going to be learning about curves and straights, and then for the actual lesson we're going to cover proportions and the very, very basics of how you should proportion your character and not the actual proportions as in the arm being lower than the waist and all these other different things. We're not going to really talk about that as much as we're just going to talk about getting the right concept and feeling like it looks somewhat understandable. But before we do that, we're going to talk about curves and straights. And so what curves and straights are is the curves and straights is the rule that for every curve there should be a straight line, and for every straight line there should be a curve. You do not want to make a triangle for an actual human body. Instead, and you don't want to make the cylinder either. I know a lot of artists will tell you to make the cylinder, but what you really want to do is we'll start off with a box right here for the shoulder blade. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take a straight line right here, and then you're going to take this bicep and you're going to actually curve it. And then we're going to have our little triangle of a shoulder blade, or an elbow, I mean. And then see how this side right here is curved. So we're going to curve this side instead and make this side straighter. And what this does is it creates a more interesting silhouette, as well as the fact that it's easier to remember which parts curve in and which parts curve out if you just try and keep it this way. So yeah, there's a arm, bicep, all that good stuff. And that works the same way for legs. So if we do a side view leg, if we do a side view leg, it'll come out like this. You'll actually want to do an S curve. And so you'll have this, and then you'll have right here, and it'll come straight down into a triangle. And so this, your front of your thigh actually has a lot more room than the back of your thigh, but then your calf comes in and it really makes the space. And there's almost no anything on the front of where your shin and everything is, so you don't have to worry about that. But my point is that even here, just when designing the body, we have a curve, straight, and a straight. And you want to continually do that with your pieces. And the reason I have Total Drama Island up is because they do a really good job of making their straights and their curves. So for instance, you can see it right here. Duncan's arm, one side is a straight, the other side's a curve. Curve, straight, straight. He's got this right here, but then it goes straight into a straight before it curves again into another straight. You can also see that you can actually see it right here with his ankles too. You can see it with the way they do their hands. One side is curved, the other is straight. And if you're paying attention and you remember what I said from last video, you can make this same hand shape with a heart. And if you go to a different person, for instance, whatever her name is, I can't remember her name now. I literally just had it on the top of my head and now it's gone. But you can actually make her legs and her hips and everything out of hearts as well, out of triangles, just like we talked about before. But again, you really want to pay attention to your curves and your straights. And if you notice, you'll see that in Total Drama fashion, the more curves that the character has, the more attractive they are. So if you look at Will, or whatever his actual name is, this man is literally just a box. He's got nothing. He is nothing. Whereas Courtney has a circle, tiny circle, and a couple lines to connect them. But it's almost just circulars. And when we look at him, he's a triangle, he's a square, he's a square, he's a square, and he's a little bit of curving. like curving like a banana. Lashana, we got right here. She's got the curves. In fact, I would say almost all of Lashana is a curve unless she's turned the wrong way. But my point in all this is just that you want to pay attention to your curves, and you want to remember that the more curves, the more feminine, the less curves, the more masculine the character will seem. So anyways, as I said before, today we're going to be going on about actual proportions, but not the actual rules, just how to make them feel right and everything of that nature. So we have our 2 heads long character, we've got a 3 head long characters, we've got 4 head long characters, and some other characters. So we'll start off with our 2 head character. And as you can see, I did different face shape so that I could show, I guess you would say, a little bit of a difference in stylization so that you guys wouldn't think it was only one way, because there's no one way to draw. I just want to show you that there's easy way to start. And what you want to do is you want to learn how to draw things like little chibis and things that are easy because of how stylized they are. And you want to pay more attention to that. And you can even see here with my chibis that, again, I was paying attention to my curves and my straight. This girl's got a curve right here, curve right here, curve right there, curve right there. This boy, on the other hand, is more like a box. That's a straight line right there almost completely. This is cut into half into 2 different curves. This is one basically straight line. He's basically just a box. And the same thing can be said for his feet. Those are actually just boxes too. And his legs are basically triangles, which is just a bunch of straights, just like we were talking about. Just a bunch of straights compared to hers, which are little nuggets of love. All jokes and weirdness aside. So this is my my character stand-in, and then this is my character OC Clara. But the point of the whole entire thing was that I was showing you that for the proportion-wise, what you really want to pay attention to is this is 2 heads, and this head is the same height as this whole entire lower half of this body right here. This is the same height as this is, because it's 2 heads. And then we actually break it off a little bit more. So the crotch is about up here, because I like to make my characters a little stumpy leg for the chibis when it's 2 heads. Normally your crotch would actually be right at the half point, but because of the fact that the head is the whole entire thing, you can't really do a half point too well. So the higher your crotch is for the character, the more long-legged they'll look, which a lot of people like. And I actually like it the opposite, and I like to give them little stout nubby nubs. So I did. Anyways, we'll go on to 3 heads. So we've got 3 head proportions right here. As you can see, there's a lot more you can understand. We've gotten a little more detailed in the hair-wise. We pay more attention. The eyes have obviously taken up less of the face because there's less face to go around. And you're going to notice that. The eyes take up more of the face. So when you're doing a chibi at 2 heads tall, the eyes are going to be almost everything. But when you do the chibi at 3 heads tall, you're going to want to make a smile. You're going to want to make sure the eyebrows are noticeable. The hair is kept under control, but also still adorable. They'll have actual necks, unlike with this one where there's nothing to be seen. There is no neck here. There's nothing there. You can't see it. It's covered by the head because it's just so squat. You can also see that I made her neck a little thinner than I made his because she's female. And then again, just like I was talking about with the curves versus the straights, we've got right here, bam, we've got a straight line versus hers, and then a straight line versus hers, which was a straight line, and then we have a curve. And then we've got straight lines for the pants. And for hers, we have a curve, and then we have another curve. You really want to make sure that your female characters that you want to be feminine have these curves, and your male characters are more square and sharp. So that's it for the 3 heads, and then we will go to 4 heads tall. And so a lot of artists, this is actually sometimes called Kodomo, which is what Pokemon's style is basically based off of. And it's 4 heads tall, but you can get a lot of the characteristics of the character with just 4 heads. So as you can see, I was actually able to show her breasts, was able to show her legs, I was able to show the thigh gaps, I was able to do all that different stuff. And as you can see, this is just all curves for this female. I did not put almost any. The face is a curve, the hair is a curve, everything's a curve. And then for the male, we've obviously got these sharp edges the way that it should be. And my dog is barking at my cat. That's great. So next we're going to go to, and also before I forget, we want to really pay attention. So I put the crotch down here because, again, I like the short little stubby legs a little bit more. But at this point, as you can see, this is almost the same distance between the two at 4 legs. And what's important really is, like I said, it's not to get the proportions right exactly. It's to get these proportions to feel right. Because at 4 heads tall, it's going to be a lot of smushing and things of that nature. So when we go to 6 heads tall, that's when we can actually get into what's proportional. So you got your 1 head here, and then you would actually, I have this a little too high. You have 1 head here, and then you'd have another head, and just a little below that head or right there is where your elbow would start, and you'd be able to bend right into the next part. And so with 6 heads tall, you can really still show the cuteness while also showing the physique. As you can see here, definitely more curves than straights. There's a straight there, there's a straight there, but there's definitely a curve there. Even the way I did her hands is just all curves, and he's just coming to sharp points. And you really want to make sure to do that when you have masculine characters. Another thing I'd like you guys to all notice when you look at these is that the eyes are getting to become a smaller portion of the face, as we mentioned already. But more than that is the fact that there's less details and there's less room to put those cute little additions in than there was before. So once you start to become more the bigger heads, you can't put as much detail into the same space and still look cute and adorable. It would not look nearly as good if I added all these different strands to the character. But because he's so adorable, it works. Once my eyes became a little smaller, I could put more on the head, so I took and put more hair on there. Once we got to the Kodomo, I got to a nice happy medium where you can show everything for the hair while also showing the body type. And then once we got to 6 heads tall, which is a little shorter than I usually like to go. I like a 6.5 heads tall, as do most artists. But as we got to here, you can't see the facial expression nearly as much. You can't see all the details that I put in. There's a lot less stuff that you can do because of this. Now, when you do a close-up and everything of that nature, that's not going to be as noticeable. But right now it is. And so for the final one, we're going to have our 8 heads length. And as you can see, this doesn't feel the best, even though it actually is proportionally somewhat accurate, because the human body is actually about 8 heads long. But it's just, it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel stylized. You can't get nearly as much information in this as you do from this 6 heads tall, because everything has to be so much less detailed. And that's basically really what I just wanted to show you guys. And again, obviously, curves. I really wanted to emphasize the curves this episode so that you guys understand that rule, because a lot of artists don't remember to do the curves, me included at some points, and it can really make or break your piece. But that's mostly it for this episode. I'm sorry if it took a little bit longer, but I really wanted to emphasize to you guys the curves and the straights, and I wanted you guys to just see that different body types or not different body types, different body lengths are going to have pluses and minuses. Like this looks quite accurate. It looks completely conceivable. Doesn't look far-fetched. He's got the right proportions shoulder-wise and everything of that nature. Everything looks like it's supposed to be. But it doesn't have nearly as much emotion. It doesn't have as much detail, and you can't do as much. Whereas with these 6 head talls, like I was saying, it's a little shorter than I like, but it's pretty close to what I like. And I've got the crouch almost in the right area. Still a shorter legged person. You know, that's just the kind of thing that you're going to learn